Welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. I'm looking forward to diving into today's episode and giving you a little bit more direction so you can elevate your business, elevate your life, and make a difference in the world. If you like anything you hear today, make sure you share it along, make a difference in someone else's life. And if you do like something, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe. It makes a whole world of a difference for us here at the podcast to continue to do this, to bring great guests, great information to you so you can elevate your business, elevate your brand, elevate your life, and take big steps moving forward. Thanks again, and let's dive into the episode. And today we're going to get creative a little bit. We're going to dive into our creative side and learn why it's so important to connect our brand with our tribes, with those that we're trying to serve and help. And we brought an expert on to guide us in this conversation and answer a lot of questions that I'm going to have and just really take all the value that he has for free. And we're thankful to have him on. Well, we got Daniel Adolph on the show. He's the founder of Dino Creative. Daniel, welcome to Elevate Your Brand.
Hey, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to, share a little bit of story and have a good time.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited. We were doing a lot of talking in the green room before this, and Daniel's doing a lot of cool things, giving back to community through, being a professor, teaching kids, all about creative outlets and things of that nature. And then his business, Dino Creative. And so just a lot of neat things going on with Daniel. And so we're excited to have you on here and dive into your story a little bit. Have you always been creative? I'm going to dive right into it. Like, were you always a creative kid?
I mean, I think everybody has nature to be creative and to draw and to do everything. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, I can't draw." And that's just not the case. Everybody can do anything. I'm a big believer in that. It's just how many hours do you want to put into that? Is there people in your community? Is there people in your family that are going to nurture those things? And one of the awesome people that nurtured that myself was James DeRosa, who goes by, I think, James Monsters 8, the letter 8, James. And he makes awesome ceramic monsters. And when I was a kid, he made, he was actually working with my dad in doing t-shirt designs and things like that. And I remember we were making Halloween cards one time. and I was, I was a meticulous kid. I really wanted to be careful. I liked it. When I colored, I wanted to make sure I colored in the lines because that's how it looked good. And he was one of the first people to really kind of push me with creativity in the sense of not being super technical, but being creative. He was saying, we were working on these cards and I had my scissors out and I was cutting the craft paper and having fun. And he goes, "Oh, well, don't use the scissors." And I'm like, "Well, how are you going to get straight lines? How are you going to make it look good?" And he's like, "Well, that's not what it's about. It's about having fun and experimenting and seeing what comes from that. Try tearing the paper. See what happens when you tear the paper. And then you also get to really feel and have the experience of it." And going through that and being a lot more tactile just was one of those first experiences of going, wow, it's important to follow the rules and you need to know the rules, but then understanding how to break them, understanding how to expand and really play in your sandbox. That I think is a huge portion of being creative.
Yeah.
And I think far too often we push ourselves to just be so technical and do this right thing and not connect with what we care about.
Right. Yeah. I think it's, you see little kids all the time and their imagination's just all over the place and they're just creating, really, like they're just exploring and creating. And I think to get to a point in life and, people might now as adults, I'm not creative, I'm not artistic, I'm not creative, I don't have all that stuff. And I think there's just a point in life where either life beats it out of you that you don't need to be creative or have imagination, or just kind of, just other things where that switch. I'm trying to think of my life. Like, I still think I'm fairly creative and have a good imagination, but where does that switch happen where for the majority of adults that creativity and imagination just kind of gets shut off?
And I don't know. And I think maybe it's just the circles that I run in with myself, but everybody I engage with is creative in some way. I mean, one of my friends one of my friends was in mergers and acquisitions, and he was one of the most creative people I knew, and wonderful creative problem solving. Another person also dealing in finance and dealing with spreadsheets and things like that. But the way that they focused their creativity was problem solving in different ways. Maybe they didn't feel that they were creative, quote unquote hands, because they weren't doing a painting or they weren't doing this, that, or the other thing. But oftentimes I find those same people that aren't necessarily creative in that realm are finding another avenue to focus their creativity, maybe in being creative in sports, being creative in, crafting, woodworking, making of things, playing music, and having some sort of avenue to an outlet for that creativity. So I guess my thought would be, if you don't think you're creative, try to be.
Yeah.
Try to find an outlet for that creativity, and don't worry that you have to make money or that it needs to be good.
Yeah.
Don't worry if it needs to be good. Make bad work.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I think a lot of times, as we get adulthood and, we could have the debate or the conversation, or depending who's listening or whatever, that like sometimes the school system kind of ends that for a lot of people because they're just, and that's a whole nother topic, but I think just the world, we'll just say the world, we'll be more general, kind of puts people in boxes, or they make them choose a box to be in. But I really, and I kind of to that point, I think there are a lot of creative people out there, thinking of my circle as well. But like, I think a lot of people are more creative than they even think because they aren't maybe a big artist or musically inclined or something like that. So that's a good point. Like, it can be different. It can look different, but still be creative. And maybe you're just really creative at problem solving. Maybe you're really creative at marketing. Maybe you're really creative at, writing a book or, whatever it is. It just isn't the technical or the type of creativeness people immediately think about. So that's a great point to make there, and that you brought up. And I'm curious, this is kind of a little off tangent. It still has to do with creativity. Before we dive into kind of what Dino Creative does and how we can bridge that gap between our brand and our tribes, with AI coming into the picture, that opens up a whole new world of creativity based on AI, I guess. But like, I know a lot of artists and things are a little worried because of AI creating music and creating paintings. And I think one actually won an award at some art show. What are your thoughts on AI and creativity? Like, is it going to destroy creativity in the fact that it can do art better than us? Or is AI going to be such a help for people? And I guess these are both my thoughts. AI is going to be such a help for people not have to do such mundane tasks that frees their time up to be more creative in different ways. Do you fall on either side of that debate with AI at all, or?
Well, so I have so many thoughts. We literally could spend the rest of the day on all of that. And there's actually some great other discussions about it, and there's a lot of talks about it right now. My first kind of stance on it is that the way that it's gone about, especially with generating the AI artwork or really AI collage
Yeah.
is troublesome because it was brought under, it was the tools which were made for that were brought about using nonprofit and research-based like structure. And so they said, hey, we're going to do this. And so we can get all this information because it's not going to be for profit. It's going to be for research. It's going to be the betterment of mankind.
Yeah.
But that had a parent company, which then was able to get that information and then turn it for profit. Now, the actual company that was doing it was a nonprofit. So it's a huge legal gray area.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the information has been gained in very, this is not a legal term, douchey way. It's just a real jerk move of how it was done. Now the concepts and all the things that are dealing with it are awesome and fantastic. And this idea that you can create at the speed of thought is just amazing.
Yeah.
Like I can just generate all these different ideas and it can help you get over that idea of the blank page, you know, rather than being at the blank page and be like, I don't know, I have the ideas. Let me start this. Okay. I've got some references. I have some ideas I can start with, and you can do that with writing and all these different things. But it's also been interesting because the same company started to do it with music, and they said, this is generating music which is too close to actual copyrighted music, and we're going to get, they didn't say it this way, but they said, we're going to get in trouble. And they stopped it.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see who has lawyers and who doesn't, and who and what's happening with it.
Yeah.
So it's a little frustrating in that respect of the way it's being going about.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I love the nature of it. Same thing, kind of going the other direction. Same thing with NFTs. Right. I think the idea of being able to have artwork that is collectible, because Magic the Gathering, baseball cards, all that. I was a huge fan of it, and I love the idea that you could now create value for this digital artwork, because digital artwork has value to it. But then it got taken and manipulated in a way which it no longer was about art. It was no longer about this. It was, it became not how again, who cares what I like, but not what I would have liked.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the challenge I find, and I don't have an answer in the slightest.
I think it's an ongoing discovery and discussion, because it's going to be interesting what the next few years even open up with AI and that. So I was just curious on that, especially with the creative side of things and how it's kind of evolving in that area as well. So I appreciate you sharing your take and your perspective on it.
You can't put the cat back in the box now.
No. Yeah.
So
we've opened some sort of box for sure, and I don't know if it's good or bad yet. We'll see.
Well, and so my note to creatives out there is same type of thing. Yeah, okay, maybe you're scared or you're afraid or you're worried that it's going to take your job. Don't be, but be aware. Be aware of these things that are out there. And, you can choose to use these tools. You can choose to not use these tools. But what I would say is make sure that you continue to hone your craft and show the reason why you are creating value. Because if they're trying to solve a problem and they feel that they can solve it with a tool rather than you, great. But you need to show why you're more valuable than whatever this thing is.
For sure.
So
that's a great point with it. Yeah. And it kind of segues really nice into, you know, what we want to talk about for this kind of second half of the episode is, you know, how do we connect? How do we bridge that gap? How do we show our value with what we have to our audience, to our tribe, to those we're trying to serve? So that's kind of what Dino Creative does. So how are you guys going about doing that? I know we have a graphic for those watching the video, and we'll try to explain in more detail for those listening. So yeah, let's kind of dive into a high level. I mean, it's an in-depth diagram, but like, yeah, how do we bridge that gap between our brands and our audiences?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is it's just how we think as people. Mm-hmm. And that's what it really comes down to. Far too often, you'll encounter somebody and they will say, I need a logo, or I need to improve my SEO, or I need to sell X number more units of something. But they're not talking actually about the real root of what they're trying to solve. They're talking about very surface level. Right now when we're talking at the beginning of the year, and probably some people have set New Year's resolutions. I'm going to make a harsh and quick judgment here. I hate New Year's resolutions. I think that people, I think it's proven that people struggle to actually hold something for that long.
Yep.
And, but I think goals and improving your identity and having ways to accomplish those things are very important.
Yeah.
And so based off of a bunch of different books and things like that I've read, like Simon Sinek's Start With Why, Atomic Habits, E-Myth Revisited. If any listeners, if you haven't read those 3 books, go read them now.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is far too often people start on the outside. They start on this very surface level of SEO.
Yeah.
You know, I need to get more clicks on my social. I need to get more likes.
Right.
Okay. What are likes going to do on your billboard of social media?
Yeah, it's just gonna make you feel good.
Or maybe they even say, I need a new logo. What are they really saying? And so, I brought a little graphic, but the key is to help your clients or even the people that you're talking about to start at the core of it, to start at the heart of the concept and not be on the outside, not to say the goal, not to say I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Because if you say I'm going to lose 10 pounds this year, and then you either give up because it's hard, or you struggle with it, or heck, what if you succeed at that? Even great. But the problem is if you succeed, what do you do next? If you fail, do you give up and you break down as a complete person?
Right.
And so in the case of branding and a lot of these things, if the outside, if maybe you don't meet one of your metrics, if you don't meet one of your goals, if you don't one of these outside things, say we want to get, we're talking podcasts.
Yeah.
We want to get 50 new subscribers each month. Okay. Maybe that's a very accomplishable goal, but what if you don't do it?
Yeah.
Well, do you know where to pivot to? Do you know where to change to? And let me ask you, Chris.
Yeah.
Why do you do this?
I do this because, I want to hopefully have one person listen to an episode and take something away that's going to change their life or their business and send them in the right direction. Just at least one person listening in who, we can help elevate them in what they're doing in life.
And for myself, for Dino Creative, the reason why I do what I do is I hope to take, either a brand or a product or something like that, and that same type of thing, bridge that connection and get somebody else so they feel like that speaks to them. Like there's that connection in between those things.
Yeah.
And, I've heard some wonderful comedians be like, just one guy. I just need to entertain one guy. And that's what we're talking about. Cool. We live in a capitalist society. We need money to survive. Right. But that's just a byproduct of it. If I could do anything and I had all my bills taken care of, I'd still be doing the things I'm doing. And so we're talking about, Chris, what you and I are talking about here is we're talking about our vision, our brand vision, that core of everything. Why do we exist?
Right.
And then we go out from there and we build out our brand strategy of how we're going to reinforce this vision of connecting with people or getting one more listener to feel connected to the information. And then, there's values. For myself, the values are evolution, partnership, creativity, and I forgot my last value. But having those key core values and then also having a mission. What is this that that a benchmark that you can check against every single time you do your work? Is this reinforcing your mission? Are you, I'm going to nerd out here a little bit. What's the difference of the mission between Captain America and Iron Man? And I remembered my values. It's evolution, creativity, playfulness, and partnership. Those are the tenets of our chair. And if one of those got pulled away, my chair wouldn't stand anymore.
Right.
And then we tell the brand story. We can do it digitally. We can do it in literal verbal dialogue. And then on top of that, you have the visual strategy of how does it look and feel. We have red. We have this kind of active typeface for elevate your brand. Then we get a logo. And the logo is the signature of all those things that we talked about. It's the reminder of all that stuff that lived inside of it. So if you're a creative and you're a graphic designer, you can provide all of those things that we just talked about with your logo practice. There's plenty of programs out there right now where somebody can type in a few different things and get a logo.
Yep.
How are you going to beat those things?
Right.
You're going to beat it by providing all of that additional value we just talked about. If you can provide that additional value to somebody and help them understand that information and have that logo mean all of those things, that's going to be infinitely more valuable than just a circle with a dog in it.
Yeah.
But that circle and the dog with it might be amazing. It might mean everything to who you're trying to do. It might mean connectivity because a circle is never ending. It might mean relationship because of the dog, relationship of man's best friend, a dog and person, and always being waiting for you. Or imagining an imaginary brain. But
that's awesome. But I think that's a really good point. Like having that brand vision, like at the very center, like, and when I think brand vision, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is like the audience we're trying to help and how we're doing it, like, and why we're doing it. Like that is my mind of a brand vision. That's
the most important thing. The why.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be something, in my mind, it doesn't need to be something that's as concrete as how we are doing it. as Simon Sinek talked about. It's why, how, what.
Yep.
And it's that heart. It's when you talk about your brand vision, oftentimes it's really hard to talk about it because it doesn't come from your head. It comes from your feeling. And so when you are helping a brand come up with a brand vision, you should be using words that talk about feelings, not about thought.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so connection is something that we feel. Hunger is something we feel. Love is something we feel. Joy is something we feel. These are all things which should tie to somebody's brand vision.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Yeah, I think that's another great point. Again, if you haven't read Start With Why, it's a good one by Simon Sinek. But yeah, I think people buy whatever usually or get connected based on emotion. Like there's a reason that like I look at like some of the social media profiles I follow and actually like enjoy seeing their stuff. It's because when I watch their videos, it makes me feel, happy or makes me laugh. And so like that's the ultimate thing. Like, so those profiles are like, that's part of their vision, I would assume, because that's what they're doing.
That's part of their brand.
Yeah. That's part of, exactly.
Yep. And once they have built that in you, that expectation, that feeling, now you're going to want that, or you're going to crave that interaction, and you're going to always come back for it. Yeah. And now when you see the Starbucks logo, if you're a Starbucks fan and it's around October, you're like, give me some of that, pumpkin spice latte. I'm ready for it.
Right. Yeah. So how do brands go about evoking that certain emotion? Like, okay, they figured out like our brand vision is to help people feel confident in them. So we'll just say elevate. We want to help people feel confident on camera, to share. And this is where it gets fuzzy. So we want to help people feel confident on camera so they can bring joy to the world or something like that. Like that's like the emotion. Like we want them to be able to step in front of the camera, put their story out there, put their information and make a difference in the world. So like, is there a good way to bridge that gap of like sharing that or having people feel that emotion? I mean, because you think happy and joyful, like just share happy and joyful things, but like, how do you got any tips on how to build that connection to the emotions?
I see. So I'm going to do your job for you. It's all right. No, it's the biggest thing when we think about a lot of these things is, I'm sorry, I'm going to continue to sound like a 2-year-old, but why? Why do you want to be on camera?
Yeah.
And why do you want to spread this joy, or why do you want to spread this information? Maybe you don't want to be on camera, but you desperately want to share this information. You know you have a story to tell. You know you have a vision to tell. And you're going to go on camera because you know that's going to be the best way. This is going to be the best way to reach people, and you know that human connection is highly important.
Yeah.
So you're going to take these extra steps. You're going to learn these things. Chris, would you say you're an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, we're both terrible. We're both two extroverts talking to each other on camera, literally doing the easiest thing possible for ourselves.
Yep.
Now, do you ever have to take time by yourself?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
For sure.
what do you do after you do that?
After I take time for myself?
Yeah. After you've either prepared for an interview or, taking that time, that introvert time, that, solitary time, how do you recharge? Because that's probably, for me, it's draining. It's draining to sit down and focus and have that not interaction in some way.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
A lot of times, really, because I either work in the office or at home. So two things to recharge is I'll just kind of go walk outside, and I guess my interaction would be with our chickens and our animals. I'm just, I guess, removing myself from the normal or from the consistent day-to-day stuff to recharge that way. Or I'll just go into town. I'll just go to the grocery store. I'll go to a store and I'll just walk around. And because I'm just in the midst of people. And so I'll either just walk around, people watch, or connect with people in the store, or just literally just walk around where people are and just, again, kind of get out of being by myself working, to be in a different scene. And
I don't know about you, but I have a dog. My mom has chickens, but do you ever talk to your chickens when you go out there?
No, I don't do that. Yeah.
And so that's the funny thing. And again, we're talking more from an extrovert's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that nature of going and finding that additional way to recharge. Again, I'll reference more books. Quiet is a fantastic book. It's Quiet, The Secret Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. It's a fantastic book for both people.
Mm-hmm.
But because the nature of, maybe you are more introverted and you're like, oh, I know I express my creativity through showing these things. But again, I strongly believe anybody can do anything. If you want to build your more extroverted, going on camera, having these interactions, even just presenting to clients, having that nature of actually going and just having some time for yourself afterwards is going to be hugely, vastly important.
Yeah.
Take your time, go do your presentation, have your, have the point that you're teaching or you're having to put your face on social media or whatever the case is. Great. Do that. Put on that performance and then go and don't talk to anyone. And go be in your cave. Go recharge. Go find the thing that's going to bring you that new center to yourself. And that's really important, no matter which side of the coin you're on or some sort of variation in between. Finding that thing that's going to recharge you and fill your bucket. So I know that wasn't a direct answer of all you got to do is smile.
Right.
Easy tips with those things. Actually, you can your brain is real dumb, and you can trick your brain into doing things. You can, if you want to appear happy, literally smile.
Yeah.
And if you smile, you will sound happier.
Yep.
And there's lots of little things like that. There's the nature of doing a power stance.
Mm-hmm.
If you stand and you do hands on your hip, chest out, good deep breaths.
Yeah.
And if you literally stand up and do that before an interview or some sort of interaction, you actually physically, it's been proven that you will perform better in those type of scenarios if you give yourself that moment of centering and that moment to be the person that you want to be.
Yeah. And I think that's all good. I think being able to, I mean, obviously your cup's got to be filled out before you can, connect with that audience. Otherwise you're just going to be no good to them either. And then, being happy if you're trying to help other people be happy. And of course, no one's perfect. We have off days, whatever, and share that. Yeah. I think that transparency will help, bridge that gap because it'll make you more relatable to your audience. Guys, I'm trying to share, excuse me. I'm trying to share and show you, be happy, or whatever it is, be positive. But in reality, there are days where I'm not, and today's one of them. And this is why, but this is how I show the example, how you get out of that maybe negative spiral. So it still relates to them, but then they're a real person too. They aren't perfect. They're not happy 24/7. They have off days, but this is how they battled that. And, I could do that too, kind of thing. So I think that's another way that you can really kind of bridge that gap and connect more to that audience.
And on that same note, there's actually, sorry, I'm just referencing all sorts of different people, but there's a fantastic illustrator, Gemma Correll, and she does just wonderful work. And she takes that humorous side of things that, maybe emotional struggles or, as we talk about, interacting with people and things like that. And it's that nature of somebody else looking and going, oh man, that's me. And so you don't need to be somebody you're not.
Right.
You're person who maybe might not feel emotionally stable and might be depressed sometimes and might not want to talk to people and all of these things that maybe might be considered wrong or bad. In fact, you're a fantastic, amazing, awesome person, and you should be that person because that person is probably out there somewhere else. And how else are you going to connect with that person without showing yourself and connecting with your brand in that way?
Right.
They're going to see that your brand has that. I mean, how many times have we laughed at comedians where it's like, oh my gosh, that's me, or that's that person I know.
Yeah.
And
that relatability, I think that's huge. That excuse me, that relatability and just that connection there where you can be like, yes, they get it, they understand. I've been there, I've been there too, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's such a big piece to put in building your brand is just somehow you got to connect as the face of the brand, especially just be relatable and then show them, that ultimate thing that they're trying to overcome. How can they overcome, or how do you solve that? That ultimate, I want to feel more confident on camera, or I want to be happier, or I want the ultimate thing at the end of the day, what they're trying to do. That's what you can solve.
Yep. And that's the thing that comes from helping them change their identity, whatever that is, because everybody ties things and stuff to cultural capital. And no matter what it is, if you can provide either some cultural capital or emotional shift, you're going to help them solve their need. And if you're providing a service or goods that help make that happen, that's what it's going to be. That's going to be, they're going to come back to you for that, because how many times have you frequented someplace that you've gone before because, oh, it was good before, I'm going to do it again.
Right.
And that's also the other side of it, of the midsection of having a system. And so that consistency and making sure that they can feel that same thing. You probably, you open every one of your interviews the same.
Right.
And people know that experience. People know what's going to happen in that, and they're primed and ready. So what is that? And in visual dynamics, that has to do with colors, that has to do with fonts, that has to do with shape language. But brand is not just visual dynamics. It's all the senses. It's smell, it's taste, it's hearing, it's touch, it's all those different things. Next time you go into any sort of branded place, compare it to another one. Go into an Apple store. What does an Apple store feel like to an Applebee's?
Right.
You know, like, what's the difference of that feeling? And even actually, one of the coolest things sometimes to do is to go into different of the same chain. So like go to a more modern Taco Bell, like a one that just opened up versus a 90s one that hasn't been updated since the 90s Taco Bell. And there's obviously certain brand standards that they have to remain consistent across it. But notice possibly how the flow of the traffic goes through the restaurant or the overall experience. A tiny little brand experience that I was very impressed with was when I realized, do you have Chick-fil-A's out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do they say at Chick-fil-A when you say, thank you?
My pleasure.
And that kind of struck me the first time. And I was like, oh, not you're welcome? Like, right. But then my nerd brain, I had to go look up and find out why that was, because it was consistent every single time, no matter who it was my pleasure. And that is part of their brand. It's the nature of service. It's the nature of giving to the person. And so that ties back to those core values. And so that's the thing. Reinforce these central elements with every aspect of your brand through your system.
Absolutely. And this has been good. Like, this is just broken this down, I think, to make people understand and really think about what they're focusing on, especially starting out. Like, the logo and all that is important, but figuring out your brand vision first, figuring out your why first, and kind of extending out from there is super important. So Daniel, I appreciate you sharing all of that and just giving the direction you did and the guidance with that. As we wrap things up, what would be, maybe 3 key tips that you would leave for the audience to take away today?
I think tying back to one of the things that you said, Chris, of finding your joy or passion or whatever brings you that emotional state, and share that with the world, how through your avenue of your brand, because that's going to help you reinforce what your vision is, what your heart, what your core is of your brand. And you will attract more of those people by putting that out there.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, you cannot be everything to everyone. Yes, you think to yourself, I need 1 million subscribers. I need, I need to get all the clients. I need to reach all these different people. Do you?
Do you? Yeah.
And when we talk about tribes, there's a great book actually called Tribes. If you're a solo entrepreneur or a solo freelancer, if you're making $100,000 a year, pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let me take out a calculator here. Little baby math.
Right.
And get your wife in here. Help us out.
Right. I know.
$100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Divided by 100. It's 1,000. So if you got 1,000 people paying you $100, you make $100,000 a year. If you had 100 people paying you $1,000, and you can break that math however you want. You can do $5,000, whatever, however you want to do it.
Right.
But really, do you need that many clients? Do you really need to get that many people to be excited about you?
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people, they have the big vision and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think if they could focus on again, going back to that brand vision and like why they're doing it and serving, the best they can, the numbers will grow. Just sticking with it and having that linear kind of consistency. But like you don't need to have the world at the beginning. Like just help one person and it'll start to grow and you'll see the benefit and learn along the way. Because if you get 1,000 clients right away, you're not going to be ready for them. You're not going to be ready to service all of those and take care of all of them. And so yeah, I think that's a great point. You break it down to what you need and start there and just focus on the value that you're giving through your brand. And I think things will grow as needed, basically.
Yep. And then last thing I would say is kind of along these same lines of find an industry or a thing that you're passionate about, and make sure that there's room for you. You don't want to be another craft beer designer in the myriad of infinite number of craft beer designers, and there's no room for you to grow. Mm-hmm. But maybe the nature is that you've recognized, I don't know, that you love sports. And you want to do sports logos for baseball teams.
Yep.
Great. Go find all the little league baseball teams out there and then find all the high school teams, find all those. And yeah, maybe you'll start with some low level things, but eventually you'll be able to start to get yourself towards that pinnacle.
Yep.
And the higher end clients and those type of things. Sorry, I'm going to add a bonus fourth one.
Awesome.
Work big on that same note of work begets work. Even if you're not getting the work that you want to be doing, make the work you want to be doing. And then people will see that you can do that. And then those people will hire you. How are you expected to get the work if nobody knows you can do it?
Exactly. Yep. You got to start somewhere to be able to, have that. It's like, when you're applying for a job and they want the experience, like make sure you're getting that experience to show them you've got the experience to be able to get that. And the same as building a business. So great bonus one there. Great way to round this out. So, with that, Daniel, where can people connect with you best at and find out more about you and Dino Creative and everything else you're doing?
My social media is highly inactive, but you can find me at by Adolf, ADOFF. But I would recommend coming and checking us out at Dino Creative, DYNO Creative. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Dribbble. We're actually pretty active on Pinterest. So if you want to see our creative thought process and like what goes into a lot of the things that we do, you can get the little under the hood peek there.
Cool.
And then we have a great blog where we share a lot of information on our website at dinocreative.com. So we have a lot of resources. Feel free to also subscribe to our newsletter. We share a lot of things. Or if you're in lovely Southern California, come and hang out with us at Drink and Draws once a month.
Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, make sure you're checking them out. Get over to their newsletter, check out their website, all that fun stuff. Doing a lot of cool stuff on there we were checking out earlier. So, Daniel, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well.